Hey horror fans, welcome back to Room 237, and have another Italian horror film review. And this one's going to be kind of tough to talk about because I have no idea how to review this film. Dario Argento's Inferno. I'll say right off the bat, I like the film. I do. It's a lot happens in this. It's the 1980 thematic sequel to Suspiria. It deals with, this is part 2 of Argento's Three Mothers trilogy. Suspiria was Mother Suspiriorum. This was another one. And then Mother of Tears came out in 2007, which I heard was terrible. I haven't seen it. But anyway. So yeah, this was well, I had a page pulled up to kind of help me with this, but what is it? Mother Lacrimarum, Mother of Tears, lives in Rome. This one is Mother Tenebrarum, Mother of Darkness, which we do kind of get a hint of the one in Rome, because the beginning of the film takes place in Rome, then it takes place in New York. Basically, it sort of expands on the whole thing with Suspiria, because in Suspiria, it's just a bunch of spooky stuff in a dance academy. Until you find out at the very end, it's run by witches, catches on fire, movie's over. No real explanation. This one shows a woman reading the book called Three Mothers, written by a guy named Borelli, who sort of gives the mythology of it. And it, again, like Suspiria, it's just a bunch of spooky stuff that happens. Anybody that figure gets close to or could do harm to what the witches want gets killed. And actually, the woman in the beginning is from New York. She writes to her brother in Rome, who's a music student. Sorry, brain cramp. But his friend sees the letter because he leaves it in the classroom. But then she reads it. She gets interested in the Three Mothers, and then she ends up getting killed. Which, again, so much happens in this movie for a movie that doesn't really have much of a plot, kind of like Suspiria. Just got done watching it. But, there is great visuals. I will give it that. Maybe even more so than Suspiria. When his friend in Rome, she's attacked in this library by this sort of witchy, warlocky kind of figure. So then when she gets back home, she has this other guy, the guy from the elevator, go home with her because she's afraid. Played by Carlo from another Argento film, Deep Red. Ironically, his name is Carlo in this too. I really like that scene because she plays, is it Verdi? I'm a big fan of, apart from a metal music, I'm a big fan of classical music. She plays, I think it's a piece by Verdi, and the power keeps going off. So whenever the lights go out, the music does, but then it comes on, and so does the music. So he goes to the fuse box, and when she goes to check on him, just as the music swells up, he turns the corner, he's got a knife through his neck. That looks cool. And then, the lead guy, Mark, his sister gets killed as well. She has, gets her head pulled back on this thing of nails. And then, the warlocky, witchy thing has, long fingers and long nails. It, takes this thing and, stabs her down in the neck, almost like a guillotine. And the guy that plays Mark... Oh, it's in alphabetical order, so how am I supposed to know? Oh, well. He kind of reminds me of, a young Cary Elwes. Wesley from Princess Bride. Or Dr. Gordon from Saw, is pretty much him trying to figure out what happened to his sister. He goes to the building in New York, which is, I guess, run by a Mother Tenebrarum, the Mother of Darkness. And it's all the weird shit that happens. He tries looking into the book. Well, actually, he doesn't even find the book. A friend of his sister's who lives in the building, played by Daria Nicolodi, who is also in Deep Red, talks about how there's pipes in all the rooms so that anybody who talks, that it all goes to something, so they always feel watched. And it is like Suspiria. I mean, there is like a hidden layer where the witch is. You find that at the end. There's a guy, Canzani or something. I'm terrible with foreign names. He runs an antique store next door who sold his sister the Three Mothers book. He kind of looks like an elderly Bela Lugosi, or looks like what Martin Landau looked like in Ed Wood as Bela Lugosi. He keeps getting pissed because there's cats everywhere. And there's even a scene where he takes all the cats and he puts them in a bag and drowns them. It's pretty terrible. But then he gets attacked because he has crutches, and he falls and he gets attacked by all these rats. And then this guy comes around. I guess he's possessed by a witch, and he kills him. But, it's also sort of anticlimactic. I mean, it's more of a climax than Suspiria. Because when Mark, the lead guy, the Cary Elwes-looking one, finds the lair, because like earlier in the film, there's this elderly man in a wheelchair pushed by this woman. Oh, and also another woman that works at the building. She was in Suspiria as well as like the blonde dance instructor, the one that's very German. So like he goes through all these tunnels and whatnot, and when he finds the old man, he finds out he's the guy that wrote the book Three Mothers, and he built the houses for the Three Mothers, and that house that they're in sort of, it's like the manifestation of his body or whatever. And I will say, when you actually see the witch, it's not like Suspiria where she's obscured by a veil. You actually see her and it is a character. Some parts feel like a giallo because it is a black-gloved killer at some parts. Like in Suspiria, in the beginning when the girl got killed, you saw the yellow eyes out the window. You have the yellow eyes in here as well. A frightening sequence. And it's black glove killer, but it's not a giallo. It's a supernatural film like Suspiria because it's the sequel. And had the confrontation with the head witch, and it's really weird how she comes at him and then she just, in like a quick cut, turns into like this giant Grim Reaper thing. But a fire gets started and that causes the destruction of the building. I guess I went through the plot faster than I thought, but really the main thing about this movie is the visuals, like Suspiria. Scenes like crazy lights, like street lights that give off crazy blues and purples, or rooms with red walls and like purple lights, and very trippy and very colorful. And I don't know, it's kind of hard to explain. It's a lot like Suspiria. If you see the lights and the colors and the photography in that, it's much like in this film. Like Argento really has a thing for colors, and it makes it very surreal and dreamlike. And that's sort of what kept me going. The score was not, I don't think it was done by Goblin this time. I thought it was. No. Music's done by Keith Emerson of Emerson, Lake and Palmer. It's catchy, but sometimes it's too like bombastic and it can be kind of distracting. But the main part of it has like a chant, like a choir chant. Tenebrahum, Mater Suspiria. It's pretty catchy. I like choiry stuff like that. But yeah, like the whole last 20 minutes is just the building increasingly catching on fire as he more or less figures out what's going on. And again, where it is kind of hard to talk about, because even though there's not much of a plot, it's just waiting for someone to figure out that this building's run by witches. It's just a string of spooky events that pull it together. It is a very well done movie. I mean, it didn't do well theatrically. It didn't make as much money as Suspiria. A lot of people did not like it. In fact, this is the reason why I think his next film was Tenebrae, and why it's a bit more mean-spirited. Because people didn't like the fact that Argento was going more supernatural and about witches. They liked him for his giallo stuff. So Tenebrae was more like you like my giallo stuff? Well, check this shit out. I don't really know which one I like better between this and Suspiria. I would say Suspiria is more memorable and classic, but this one feels more fleshed out. More of a sense of what's going on. Things are explained. Well, I was going to say explained better, but they're explained, period. But yeah, I do like this cover too. It's very simple. I wish the movie was that simple. But, it is a very well-made movie. I would say it's underrated. Even film critic Kim Newman says this is the most underrated horror film in the 80s. That I don't know about. But yeah, before I start to repeat myself, this is a very well done Argento film. I mean, technically and filmmaking wise, it is well made. It's a beautiful looking movie. The colors and the photography, the cinematography is excellent. The gore effects and violence is very well done. And, DVD Maniac says Argento at his very best. I mean, visually, I could say one of them, yeah. I would just say, as far as horror films go, I think Argento is just better at giallos. I mean, I was going to say Fulci's better at straightforward horror films, but Argento's is more artistic. He takes more, like, there's an intro on the DVD before you play the movie that, he says this is his purest film, the hardest one to make. It drained him creatively and all his imagination. It's the one he takes pride in the most. And I can see why. It is a very beautifully made film. But, it does feel a lot like Suspiria. There's not much of a plot to really pull you along. It's just, what's going to happen next sort of thing. Yeah, Inferno, other than that, it is pretty well made. It, some degrees, feels like a step up from Suspiria. Suspiria just has more of that classic feel to it. But Inferno's still pretty good. So for room 237, that's Inferno. Thank you.